If you're curious to hear a little music from our guest Carla Lucero, who we spoke to in our most recent episode, check out E4TT's annual concert of music by women and non-binary composers, Midnight Serenades, on January 25th. Welcome to For Good Measure, an interview series celebrating diverse composers and other creative artists, sponsored by a grant from the California Arts Council. I'm Nanette McGuinness, Artistic Executive Director of Ensemble for these times. In this week's episode, we're joined by Elinor Armer, who we spoke to in August 2020. Thank you so much for making the time to chat with us. I wanted to ask you how you've been adjusting to online learning and what it was like teaching your composition students at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music this semester.
Well, it was surprisingly effective. We did it all through email. I had 1 day a week for each student. They would send me their compositions, the scores, and MIDI recordings of them, their compositions in progress. And then I was at leisure to study the scores and listen to the recordings. And also they would send me comments and questions and so on. And then I would take plenty of time to respond with suggestions and reactions and ideas and further questions. So in a sense, it worked very much like a lesson, except that it was spread out over a couple of days for each student, because I told them I would respond to them no later than 2 days after they sent me their work. So it was spread out in the course of a week, and it worked surprisingly well. On the downside, of course, we missed seeing each other, and we missed laughter, and we missed spontaneity. In a way, the one thing that I missed, and I'm sure they did too, was my being able to demonstrate anything at the piano or, go over their score and play parts of it and suggest that it might go this way or that way. But it worked out okay.
Well, I think in these times we'll take okay.
I think you're right, yeah. I miss the contact, of course. I miss it terribly, and I'm sure they do too, but in a way we honed our skills, our communication skills, all the more because we had to think how to put things, and we had time to think about what we wanted to say or do.
It's inspiring to me that as artists we're finding ways to continue and to grow in this unprecedented time.
I am also inspired by that and very moved. I'm moved by the lengths to which people will go to continue to communicate.
The only thing else I would ask you is how you feel your artistic life has changed during this time.
I continue composing very much as I always did. Composing does not require being in person with anybody else until such time as things have to be recorded or rehearsed. And then, of course, one has to be very social, even without the social distancing. When I'm not cleaning the house, gardening, I am composing, and I am in the middle of producing a CD of my settings of poems by Ursula Le Guin, who was my good friend and collaborator and who died a couple of years ago. This is going to be a memorial album, and David Garner is going to be my producer. Is already, I should say, my producer. Some of it is already in the can, and some of it has yet to be composed. So I am working on that.
It makes me so happy to know that we can still be making art during this time, and that you have a new and a continuing project you're still able to work on.
Yes, well, in the way that I usually do it, virus or no virus. Okay, well, I very much appreciate your doing this, and I appreciate your patience and your know-how.
Thank you for listening to For Good Measure, and a special thank you to our guest, Elinor Armer, for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast by clicking on the subscribe button and support us by sharing it with your friends, posting about it on social media, and leaving us a rating and a review. To learn more about E4TT, our concert season online and in the Bay Area, or to make a tax-deductible donation, please visit us at www.e4tt.org. This podcast is made possible in part by a grant from the California Arts Council and generous donors like you. For Good Measure is produced by Nanette McGuinness and Ensemble for These Times and designed by Brennan Stokes, with special thanks to audio engineer extraordinaire Stephanie Neumann. Remember to keep supporting equity in the arts and tune in next week for Good Measure.